The dusty town of Redstone rested quietly between rolling hills and dry plains, its wooden storefront sun-faded and creaking under the endless western sky. Life there moved slow and simple, but not kind, not to everyone. Clara Hartley lived on the edge of town, in a small cabin that leaned slightly as if tired from holding up so many years of struggle. Its roof was patched with tin, its walls rough-hewn and pale from years of wind and dust. She had built much of it herself after her father passed, one plank at a time, using what little she could trade from neighbors or salvage from abandoned sheds. Each morning she woke before the first streak of dawn. The old rooster's call was her alarm, and the ache in her back her reminder that she'd been working too long and too hard for one lifetime. She moved through her chores quietly, feeding the chickens, gathering the few eggs they still laid, milking a cow that gave less milk than she needed but enough to get by. Her hands were calloused and cracked, her clothes worn but clean, her spirit tired but not broken. She took pride in small things, the warm smell of bread from her iron stove, the little wildflowers that grew near her door, the soft hum she made when she worked to keep her mind from wandering to what she didn't have. When Clara walked into town, people noticed. They always did. Her dress was simple, faded at the hem, her hat old but neatly tied with a ribbon that had seen better days. She carried herself with quiet dignity, but still, whispers followed her like the trail of dust she left behind. "There goes Clara," they murmured. "Too poor to love, that one. Sweet girl, but no man could build a life from nothing." The words stung, even though she pretended they didn't. They'd been saying it for years, since she was 16 and her father's debts swallowed the family farm. She didn't argue with them. Arguing never put food on the table. She just kept walking, head held high, even when her heart sagged under the weight of their judgment. The town's market was small but lively, with vendors shouting prices and horses snorting as wagons rattled by. Clara sold eggs and butter there, or whatever she could spare. Most days she earned just enough for flour or salt, maybe a bit of thread to patch her dress. On one such morning, she was standing by her basket when a sharp voice behind her startled her. Turning too quickly, her basket slipped from her hand and eggs rolled across the dirt, breaking one after another. She froze, watching helplessly as the small crowd snickered under their breath. Then a shadow fell beside her, tall and calm. A man crouched down, his gloved hands helping her gather what remained. His coat was dark, his boots polished, his presence commanding without arrogance. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She knew who he was, everyone did. Daniel Hayes, the wealthy rancher whose land stretched for miles beyond Redstone, whose herds filled the plains, whose name carried respect and envy in equal measure. "You don't have to," she said softly, embarrassed by the mess, by the attention, by the fact that a man like him was touching her broken eggs. He looked up, his eyes a deep gray that caught the sunlight. "I want to," he said simply, his tone free of pity. Something about the way he said it lingered with her. When he handed back the basket, their fingers brushed, and a strange calm passed between them. He gave a small nod before walking away, but she couldn't forget the look in his eyes, steady, kind, searching. From that day, Daniel began to notice her more. He saw her walking home with her head bowed against the wind, tending her small garden behind the cabin, helping an old widow mend a fence without expecting thanks. She worked hard, but there was more to her than labor. She had a quiet strength that spoke of endurance and a gentleness that the harsh world couldn't take from her. Others noticed him noticing her. Whispers turned into talk, talk into gossip. Why's Daniel Hayes wasting time with her? Curiosity, that's all. He'll move on soon. The words traveled fast, as gossip always does, but Daniel didn't seem to care. He stopped by the market more often, buying things he didn't need, just for a few minutes of conversation. Clara tried to keep her heart guarded. She knew how stories like this ended. Men like him didn't fall for women like her. They pitied them, perhaps admired their resilience, but they always went back to their world of silks and chandeliers, while she stayed behind with her empty pockets. Still, on quiet nights when the sky turned violet and the stars began to pierce the dark, she caught herself thinking of him, the warmth in his eyes, the sincerity in his voice. And for the first time in years, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, being too poor to love was never about her at all. Maybe it was about the people who couldn't see past the dust on her hands to the gold in her heart. The night Daniel arrived, The sky was bruised with thunderclouds, the air heavy with the scent of rain and earth. Clara had just brought her chickens inside when she heard the sound of hooves pounding down the muddy road. She stepped out onto her porch, the wind whipping her hair loose, and saw him, Daniel Hayes, riding hard through the storm. His coat was soaked through, his horse lathered in rain, but he didn't slow until he reached her cabin. She stared, heart pounding, unable to make sense of it. "Daniel?" she called out, her voice nearly lost to the wind. He dismounted in one smooth motion, his boots splashing in the puddles. "I came to see you," he said, breathless, his voice raw against the roaring storm. "You shouldn't be here," she said, gripping the edge of the door as lightning cracked across the horizon. "The storm will tear the road apart. You'll get caught." "I don't care about the storm," he cut in, stepping closer, rain dripping from his hat, his hair plastered to his forehead. "I care about you." Clara froze. The wind howled through the trees, but for a moment all she could hear was the sound of his voice, steady, sincere, unshaken. "Daniel," she whispered, shaking her head. "You shouldn't say things like that. People already talk enough. You're a man with land, money, a name that means something. I have nothing. I'm no one." He took another step toward her, his boots sinking into the mud. "Don't ever say that," he said quietly, almost fiercely. "You're not no one." Her throat tightened. "I can't give you anything, Daniel. Not a home like you're used to. Not comfort, not—" He stopped her with a look that silenced her more than words ever could. "I've had comfort all my life. I've had wealth, land, respect, but none of it feels like anything when I come home at night to silence. You think love needs riches, Clara? You're wrong. Love needs honesty. And when I look at you, I see everything I've been missing." Rain spilled from the roof in steady streams, soaking them both. Clara's eyes filled, her hands trembling. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you remind me of what matters," he said softly. "Because when I'm near you, I feel peace. And because for the first time, I'm not chasing something I can own. I'm chasing something I can keep." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped forward, her hand rising hesitantly to touch his chest. She could feel his heart beating, steady and sure beneath her fingers. He covered her hand with his own, holding it there as the storm raged around them. "You're exactly what I need," he murmured, his forehead resting against hers. The rain softened, as if even the sky had grown still to listen. In that fragile, quiet moment, the distance between their worlds disappeared, and as dawn crept across the soaked valley, Daniel Hayes stood beside Clara in the pale morning light, not as a wealthy rancher rescuing a poor woman, but as a man who had finally found the one thing his money could never buy.